Alright, welcome to another episode of Ponch's Paint Booth. Ding ding ding. I need sound bites for that. So, as you know, this is where I basically do all my painting and hobbies and stuff like that. For you guys. Ooh, shit. And go off the rails, apparently. Back on track. If you haven't done so already, first things first, go to the corner, like and subscribe to Multi-Murdy Media, which is the page that you're watching right now, channel, excuse me. You will get this playlist, as well as a few other playlists, including, video game playthroughs and stuff like that, and the video format to my podcast, Jankety Ass Podcast, right now. Currently with myself and my buddy Tom, at the time of this recording. Things are going to be changing, but, who knows. And of course, at the end of the episode, and in the show notes, is the link to the website for Multi-Murdy Media, as well as socials, and everything's in the website as well. And on my website, you will also find the model gallery for basically everything that I've done in the show here, aside from commissions, because there's usually something missing that I would want to include. Everything that's in my gallery is like a fully painted scheme, usually of my, I either of my scheme or my interpretation thereof, as we're about to see with this video, and also has fully painted bases, because that's just what I do for that. So, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're working on today. Today, I am working on these are going to be Black Templars team, but they are the Adeptus Astartes Intercessor Seargents. There's a few different kinds here. So the first, I was originally going to do these as part of the regular troop squads, but I thought this would be more interesting, especially since they have a lot more. Each of these guys they have a lot more of accessories and stuff like that. Each one of these guys is basically a character in their own right, but I will show you each one first. I have one of two Intercessor Sergeants. This guy he's bald-headed, or not bald-headed, bare-headed. Powersword in his left hand, tossing a grenade in his right, and he does have the pistol here on his hip in the back. Let's see. This one already has skulls on the base. These two, I still need to add some stuff, but most notable details other than he's got a simple banner, but he's also got a miniature personal reliquary here on his belt. And I saw something, oh yeah, and he's got a lantern on his backpack. Here's my second Intercessor, or Assault Intercessor Sergeant, I should say. This one's got the helmet, but mainly he's got this extra shield that I added on here. He's got additional purity seals. That's the word I was looking for. And let's see, this one doesn't have anything. Well, he's got his own little icon reliquary there as well. And then, here we have the Heavy Intercessor Sergeant. Unlike the other three, this guy is wearing gravis armor, just like the Heavy Intercessors that you already saw, which actually... Yeah, so basically, they're all going to have a similar scheme to this guy, but this is just an example of a fully painted Heavy Intercessor. And all of these guys are also part of troop choices, so they will all end up having the the tactical arrow on their right shoulder, and then of course, as always, we'll have some form of the chapter insignia on their left shoulder, and they're going to be following more or less the same paint scheme. However, this guy of course has the banner, extra purity seals on him, and I have a relic skull on his belt, and just extra pouches and stuff like that. Last guy is for my the sergeant for my standard intercessors, which I've yet to do a video for. Those are going to come later. But pretty much all around the same, except he's equipped with a power fist, unlike the rest of them. And what makes this guy special is I went ahead and gave him the cape that comes with the Black Templars Crusader Squad, which is also something that I'm going to be doing later. That one's going to be fun. That one's going to be like a series video, just in one squad. And I do still have some other ones that I need to prime as well. But, and then of course, he just has he's got the banner, some, and just extra fun details. So, start off with, first thing I'm going to do is kind of work on the regular armor, the color or whatever, which being Black Templars, their standard color is of course black. So that's the easy part, you could say. Let's see, and then also with these guys, especially the ones that, well, let's see. I'm also going with making their banners black for the most part. They're going to be simple-ish. This one is the only one that's going to be, yeah, I'm just going to make this banner pure white. But anyways, well, as you can see, everything's already painted black because I use black primer. It's the way I like to do it. What I am going to do, however, with the black, or concerning the black, is I'm going to be dry brushing a layer of field gray, and which the nice thing about it being black is that they don't really need any sort of wash, right, to bring out extra color, because I mean, what are you gonna color in the recesses of a black surface? Which is more black, that's stupid. Well, not really, but I mean, I'd imagine there is a way to do it, but it's not something that I'm really interested in trying. I did try something like that once, where I had like a dark surface and I tried to put in a lighter color or whatever, and it just looked like it looked like a cookie dipped in milk, right? It wasn't good. So I'm not trying that. But field gray, this is my darkest gray. No, it's not. I lied. Hardened carapace is my darkest gray. This is the one that I meant. But this will be dry brushed over all the black elements, and that'll give us, just some extra edges on the models. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Still a piece of garbage. Fuck. Okay, so I was wrong. Field gray was the color that I actually wanted. This is a little too dark for that. So, bit of a waste, but that happens. I should probably write my color schemes down someday. Anyways, let's try this again. Field gray. Okay. I'm not even really going to bother. Well, yeah, I'll show you. Hold on. That is the gray, not outlining, edging done. Let's see, who's a good example. Yeah, I mean, it is probably the backpack here might be the best. Actually, no. Oh, yeah. So probably the best spot actually is you can kind of see like on his shoulder. Oh fuck! What is this? Crest. His shoulder crest. That's probably not the right word either, but the edges are a little bit brighter. They aren't just flat black. That's the gray effect. Just nice. But otherwise, it is pretty subtle. But it just adds more to the models. Now we're going to add a lot to the models. So now it's time to get in the other primary chapter color of the Black Templars, and that is just straight up white. And well, this is going to be going in a few different places. So the normal spots that we use the white on is, of course, the Aquila on the chest, which I believe every single one of these guys has. Yes. So, yep, chest Aquila. This round plate on their backpack. Both shoulder pads, like the primary fill, not the edges. The edges. Well, what I'm gonna do for the sergeants is the left edge, shoulder edge that's gonna have the chapter insignia. I'll leave that rim black. But the right shoulder edge, which is shoulder pad, which is gonna have the tactical arrow, I'm actually gonna make the rims red, only on the right side, and not both rims, because well, I found out later that is more for. Well, that's a different color scheme, which you'll actually see that later as well. Let's see. So yeah, white. The inside of the banners is going to be white, except for, what is it? This one where it's just like a flat banner and there's no other details in it. I'm just going to make the whole thing white. And last but not least, his cape here. The outside, the side is also going to be white because I'm going to put the insignia on his cape as well. I'm not sure exactly how yet, but some way. And then after that, it's going to be just like random knee pads and elbows that are also painted white. And I'm probably going to do one of these two guys that has a helmet. I'm probably going to do their faceplate white as well, but only one. Well, anyways, you guys all know what white paint looks like, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh man. Well, that took a while, but we got all the white down on these guys. This one with the cape was especially tedious. As you can see, that took a little bit. But, so, all their shoulders, the Aquilas on their chest, and of course, some elements on the banners, and then just some other random shit all over. All a nice flat white. And we're going to go ahead and let... Ooh. Try not to sneeze. Fuck. We're going to let the white completely dry off before continuing. So, we will return in a moment. Moving along, I went ahead and applied... Well, you already saw I applied the white. And I actually went ahead and added in a third layer just to try and get like an even more even coat. It's not that, well, actually, it's not as easy to see without the light, but you can kind of see that there's some spots that are still a little screwy, but it's not too bad. So now what I'm going to do is on all the white sections, we're going to apply a contrast paint, Apothecary White, which doesn't look white. Obviously, it's actually very light gray. But what this does, as I've explained this before, but so basically when I apply this with the contrast paints, is areas that are flat or raised will generally, the paint will just kind of wash off and it'll preserve the color for the most part. But what this does do is it'll fill in the recesses with a slightly lighter gray, so kind of giving it our negative detail. You'll also notice that I also have Iandon Yellow out, and what this is going to be for is this guy that had the lantern on his back. I'm going to fill that in with this color, and it's going to give us kind of like a fiery effect, much like I've done with the Necron weapons in previous videos. So let me go ahead and show you what this looks like really quick. Like first, basically just kind of apply this, and this will give me different shades of, basically it'll go over the white and it'll kind of turn the edges, not the edges, the crevices orange, and then the color underneath yellow. Just give me 1 second, let me clean this off. So, as you see, we got a nice yellowish and orange color going on. And then once, eventually I'm going to come back and sort of fill in all of the, whatever this is called, like the cage, the lantern cage, I guess. I think that's what it's called. With another color, and then it'll look, nice and even. But now, let's go ahead and get into the white contrast. Alright, got some Apothecary White done, or, that was dumb, contrast in. Make sure I'm cleaned up. So you can see that there's, well, the best example of this effect is right here in the chest Achilles, so you can kind of see that there's some extra detail surrounding the wings or not the wings, like the feathers. And of course I had to sneeze now and not while I was painting. And then of course also when I come back here on the cape, you can see there's a bit of extra detail. Now with the bigger white spaces like the banners and the cape, I am going to have to go back in and dry brush some white back in just to kind of get some of that color and get rid of the like the muddiness that sometimes happens with shades and washes. But obviously first I'm going to let these guys dry and then we'll do that. Alright, continuing on with our dudes, I am going to start working on some of the more red-ish derivative stuff. So that's going to involve like bones, skin, and the weapons and stuff like that, and leather. So, let's see. The first color that I'm going to apply, I'll just kind of go in order. So one of the colors I'm going to apply is on our helmetless dude. His head is going to be done up with kobold skin. That's my slightly tanner skin color, as opposed to the corpse pale that I normally use. Actually, wait a minute. No, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to use this one instead. Tanned flesh, even tanner. That's why I bought this. So he'll be nice and sun-touched on his face. That's one color. Another one I'm going to be doing a lot with is Drake Tooth. And where this is going to go on, you'll see on most of these guys, they have some skulls on their base, like this one here. And then this color is also going to be used for the purity seals, or like the actual fabric parts that kind of come off, and everybody has something like this that needs to be done. And then also in some cases they have like little reliquaries that have bones on them, so like you can't see it as well in this one, but he's got a little shrine there hanging off of his belt. And there's one that's a little better. Oh yeah, here we go. Our standard Intercessor Sergeant has a couple of bones bound together as a small relic. So that's what that's going to be used for. Oh, and this one even has a skull piece up here on his banner. You can kind of see. And then, of course, for all their pouches and stuff that they have all over, it's going to be leather brown, pretty obvious. And last is going to be the guns, the right shoulder trim, the cape in this guy's case, and then also some of the trim in the banners is going to be done up with our terracotta red. That's the dark base red that I use for stuff. And when all that's done, we're going to hit it with Agressive shade. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the tan flesh, as I haven't used it yet, and it's only a small part, and it's probably going to take at least a couple coats, as most of these will. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so you guys just saw me do quite a bit of painting here. Give you a better view in a second. So, start with my intercessor, or my assault sergeants. As you see, we got the gun painted up, a little bit of detail on the banner as well, and there's eventually going to be the Templar cross in the middle there. Some pouches in the back, and the grip on his sword, as well as all these little purity seals and skulls and stuff all over the place. My other assault intercessor, same thing, except he's also got some skin tone that's going on him, and just sort of the same thing all around. Lots of nice little details. My regular intercessor sergeant, and by regular I just mean like the not the assault or heavy variants, but just the ones that have like the regular standard bolt rifles. So he's got a bunch of guns all done up, including some extra stuff on there. I did some more work on the inside of his cape. I do have a little bit of a spillage there in the middle, but that's easy to clean up later. And also the same, more details on his tabard, or not his tabard, his banner and crown piece there. And speaking of heavy, got our heavy intercessor. Now this is the one that I missed this in explaining what I was going to do, but he was also helmetless. This one I did use the corpse pale paint that I was talking. Here, get in camera. The corpse pale skin tone, which is lighter, definitely a lot lighter than our tanned dude here. Actually, let me put them side by side. You'll have to forgive my shaky hand a little bit. My back's killing me right now. And now you'll notice his face does look a little bit lopsided. That's because the left side here is actually, we can't really see it yet, but that's actually like a metal plate and all that going over his eye and down into the left side of his jaw. Once I'm get into like the metallics, I'll go ahead and do that up. But now, got one last thing, is to hit all those areas with Agrax Earthshade and really get some details coming out. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Okay, a little bit of liquid skill down on these guys. I will give you a better view here in a moment. Now, I am, of course, going to let these guys dry off before continuing on with our Sarges. And I got some other models I got to do it before Vegas here. But here's our heavy. You can see, we can see more of the creases in his face, and then of course all the tabards and skulls and all that shit has extra detail, which I'm gonna dry brush back in some of the original color to get better detail basically. Here's our regular intercessor sergeant with the cape. Got to make him look cool, and our two assault sergeants. Yeah, a lot of detail. Come along nicely. So, like I said, we will let these guys dry off, and then we'll come back and kind of finish up these tails and start on the next one. Details. You know what I mean. Okay, finally back on our sergeants here. And also coming back from the Las Vegas Open, just got into town earlier, actually, or not into town, back into town, my hometown, not that town. So, the only one that I didn't use was the Intercessor Sergeant, or the standard Intercession, because I didn't use one of those squads. I did, however, use a squad of heavy dudes and a couple squads of the assault dudes. You know, I'll give you a... Well, actually, for you, it's only just like a few seconds, so don't worry about that. What I'm going to do now, well, what we did before is we worked on some of the red derivative stuff, or red to brown, I should say. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into those areas and build up a little bit more detail. Now that we have the negative spaces kind of figured out, such as you can see, I put the wash on like the face, and I know I can get a good... Alright, yeah, I seriously need a new camera. Anyways, so we did the red on the weapon casings, the all the bone colors, of course, some leather, a lot of pouches, parchment, and in a couple cases there's faces here. So what I'm going to do is with the reds that we did, I'm going to go in and dry brush in our pure red. That's our nice bright red that'll bring out the edges, especially around the guns. The faces for, well, let's see, and let me not get ahead of myself. On the leather pouches, actually, no, I'm not going to deal with this. I don't really need that. I'll put the leather away somewhere. There we go. Forget the leather. Bones, I'll go ahead and dry brush in Drake's Tooth. So it's the same color as I used for the bones, which for the most part is just going to amount to the skulls that are on the bases. But also in some cases, such as like this, let me see if the light helps. There we go. So like he's got the purity seal on the back. I'm going to go ahead and use dry brushing to get some of those edges more pronounced and stuff. And then for these two guys that don't have helmets, my assault sergeant, who is bareheaded, I'm going to go back in with the same color, tan flesh, and dry brush in to bring out some of the details like his temples and his brows and the nose and mouth, the face, basically. Really make it stand out. And then I'll do the same thing with the heavy intercessor, except with cobalt skin, which actually, is that the one I used? Sure, why not? It's going to be brighter either way, so let's see, I'll save the red for last because I used a different brush for that. Let's start with the biggest one, and that's going to be the Drake's Tooth. Let me see, make sure I got my dry brush ready to go, and let's get to it.
To me, like, it needs the J. Otherwise...
Okay. Got a little bit of dry brushing work in. And I also took the time to go in on our dudes with helmets and fill in their eye lenses, which you can kind of see. There we go. I think that's about as good as we're going to get. So, yeah, eye lenses. Got some edges on the guns and stuff. A little bit on his cape here too. Before I forget, I gotta fix that spot. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and do next. Where is the white? Get this fixed up real quick. Nothing too fancy. Just put some white over. Blend it in a little bit. Awesome. Can't even tell the difference. So now what I want to do is start working on some of the black details, I guess you could call it. So what that is a couple things. First, I'm going to get a head start on the bases, as I like to do. And what that is going to be is basically all the flat areas are going to be done up with field gray. That's our medium gray. And this goes well underneath the rough pumice material paint that I normally use for the bases, which I might actually get around to doing after this, actually. Get started on that too. And then I'm also going to be applying gunmetal, which is going to go over all the, basically the metal bits all over these guys. So like, for example, all the other parts of the guns that aren't painted currently. Not the power swords, those are going to be different. I'm going to make them a little bit fancier. It's just going to be a more gold and silverish, but pieces of the backpack, of course. These banner poles are going to be metal, and then the belt buckles and the sides of the helmets are, to name a few. And then there's going to be other smaller random bits, especially on our heavy sergeant. Since he has gravis armor, there's kind of more detail going on there. And let's see. And our gravis sergeant here, you can kind of see he's got the side of his face is actually metal, or at least kind of around the eye socket. Yeah, it's just the eye socket. And that whole earpiece as well. So, yeah, I'm going to start with the field gray. Do the heavy first. And then move on to the gunmetal. Okay, now we're really starting to get some real detail on these guys. Got some metal stuffs in. Got some base. Oof. Got some base work in. Actually, I'll show you on this guy. So each of these guys, we went ahead and did up their banner pole. The guns are nice and built up now. Get that in the middle there. And then there's just like other little bits and pieces kind of all over the models. Well, the backpacks, for example, they got their bits done. Here, the heavy intercessor is a little bit better. You can kind of see on the legs, there's a lot of metal buckles and stuff. And then, of course, he's got his iron eyepiece going on there. Now, I'm going to take a quick break and relieve myself. When we come back, we're going to do a couple more things. Are you listening to this show and thinking, man, I'd like to start a podcast, but I don't even know where to start? Well, Buzzsprout has the answers for you. Buzzsprout is a podcast hosting service that provides a number of valuable resources to help you on your podcasting career path. For one, Buzzsprout offers indefinite hosting of all your episodes and allows you to host as much material as you want, depending on the type of subscription that you opt for. Buzzsprout also provides a means for getting your show hosted to every major podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, you name it. In addition, Buzzsprout also provides various means to get your show monetized through various sponsorship and affiliate programs, links to other paid hosting platforms such as Patreon and YouTube, and your own personal newsroom to learn all the tips and tricks for optimizing your podcast for the greatest return on your investment. If you're hearing all this and you're still interested, you can go to my link below and receive an Amazon gift card for starting a podcast hosting subscription that you'll receive on the second billing period of your podcast journey. Everyone has something to share, and there's no time like the present. Join Buzzsprout today. Okay, back. I'm good. And like I said, well, let's see. Okay, we finished up the gunmetal. Put it in the right spot. And like I said, there's one more thing. There's a couple more things, actually, that I wanted to do. But the first, I'm going to go ahead and address, I'll save the next part for last, it's time to add in our lighter ash gray. Where this is going to go, I was prompted to do this, first of all, because this sergeant in particular has a piece of rock that he's standing on. And as you remember, I typically do ash gray for the rocks. But in addition to that, I also use this color for behind the joints and some of the joints around the waist, although they're not that visible here. Well, you can see they are kind of peeking out a little bit between the breastplate and the abdominals and the belt. But then especially the back of the knees, those ribbed areas, that's going to be this color. And let's get a pretty good example too. Right here at the elbow joints, same thing. And then also the ones that have the standard Primaris armor also have these. You can't really see them, but they're like a kind of a strap that goes from the back plate of their actual body armor down to the bottom of their chest plate, so kind of underneath the ribs. The gravis guys don't have that because their shit's a little bit thicker, but they still have. Well, they still have behind the knee joints. His elbows are, clenched up, so you can't really see. But then the gravis guys, or the only one that I have in this case, they also have this pipe that goes from their hips down to the back of their shins. I believe that's the word. Yes. You got a couple of them. So here we go, ash gray. Now, let me make sure my own entertainment's pulled up. All right, here we go. Alright, got our grays done. So you can kind of see all over, let's guess, here we go. So you can see all over the joints, we got some coloration going on and all that. Ribbed material has some color to it. Now, we're going to add some texture. That is going to be in the form of our Null Oil shade. Actually, no. Forget this. Next thing I want to do is, so I want to save that actually because I want to use the Null Oil in one shot. So the next thing we're going to do is add in our rough gray pumice. This will give us a nice rocky texture on the bases. Just a little bit though. I'm not going to cover the whole thing because as you know, these guys are done up with a snow theme. So I'm going to go ahead and do the pumice, get some texture in, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So this looks like shit right now, but as you guys have seen before, once the pumice dries, it'll kind of take on a darker color, and you'll be able to see, which is also why I added in the field gray on the base, because that will also show through, and it'll look right. And then also, especially once I go in and add the wash or the shade, and then we dry brush some stuff back in, it'll look like rock or rocky ground. But for right now, it's a nice light gray paste. And we are going to let these guys sit and dry off, and we will come back when they're ready to add in some more details. Okay, so the grays and the stuff that we did last time were done, or are done now, namely adding some texture to the base. Now we're going to continue on. So, basically the next thing that I want to do is pretty simple. A little bit of extra work with the black. I'm going to keep these to the side for now. I don't want to do that just yet. Now, as you can see on all of these guys on the shoulder pads and on the banners, I added in some extra stuff. Basically went in with my black paint pen, and I gave them the unit designation markers on their right shoulders, which the three of these are all part of troop choice units. So that is, of course, the tactical arrow that's pointing up, or whichever direction is the top of the shoulder pad. And on the left, I did a little freehand Templar cross. And now where it really gets different is being sergeants, these guys have more energy than I do. They have banners, or like little standards on their backpacks to denote that they're sergeants, basically. Especially in the case of this guy, he's he's the least different looking. But anyways, for most of them, I did just like some form of the Templar cross, namely my Intercessor Sergeant, and my 2 Assault Intercessor Sergeants. Although this one I added in a little bit more, just because the the banner that he has is a little less detailed to begin with. So there weren't like any borders to add in. It's just all one solid color. And then on my heavy guy, I did another extra little thing. I put in a little check mark design in there. I kind of and kind of cut the design in half to make more of a it looks a little bit more like a family crest sort of thing. But of course it's not, because Marines are all family. Anyways, all those sections, they are going to be filled in with matte black. And then I'm going to get to a wash, but we'll get to there when we get to there. So first, let's see what happens with the black. Awesome. Put some black on. We got some chapter symbols and unit symbols. Got them all nice and fleshed out in black and picked out. That's the Intercessor Sergeant. This one's the slightly more dynamic of the Assault Sergeants. Blah, blah. Sorry, it's late. And of course our fun with this guy. It's got a nice, interesting banner. So now what I'm going to do is finish off the black and gray areas. And that's going to be done by applying our Nuln Oil shade. Just going to go over all the base, so that'll give us a lot of detail in this rough ground. But then I'm also going to be using it in all the light gray parts that we did earlier. That was all the joints and like these pipes and such. We use the black to fill in like the ribbing and the recesses and make it really stand out. So, no oil wash, or shade, sorry. Let's get to it. Alright. It's a bit of a stopping point for us. I'll show you what I did, basically. And I forgot to mention that I was also going to apply, or that I also needed to apply the Nuln Oil to all the gunmetal segments that we did. But anyways, we added a little bit more details at the base. As you see on the guns, the Nuln Oil wash really fills in those metal surfaces, or the iron / steel looking surfaces at least. Same with the banner poles. Not as much because it's sorry. I thought I could talk a little bit better when I was yawning, but not as much, just because it's like a kind of like a flattish / round surface, not a lot of details. And well, you can't see it with this one, but and then of course also the joints in their armor. You can kind of see there's a little bit of extra detail in there behind the elbow. And the belt buckle too. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and let these guys dry. And come back and work on even more details in a moment. Alright. What did I do last time? Oh yeah, I added in some black wash. Got some more detail done on these guys, on our sergeants. Namely, in regards to... actually, this is the worst example I've got. Here we go. In regards to the joints, you can see how the ribbing in the joint material here is really nice and picked out. And the same for the bases, which is actually the next thing that we're going to address. Let me get some light on you. Is I'm going to go ahead and do this piece is a little bit loose. The ash gray dry brushing over all this rocky texture, and that's going to make it even more natural looking, more like rocks. And it'll help pick out some of the details and stuff like that, or just make them brighter and such. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, and then I will move on to some even more nitpicky stuff. And I think that might actually be... yeah, you know what? We're almost done with these guys. In fact, I think I can actually finish them up in this next round. Yeah. Ooh. Which means that I'm going to need some of this. Right now, the base. Let's go ahead and make these bases look pretty. All right. So now the rocky texture of the bases is done. You've seen me do this before, so it's nothing new. Now, let's put the gray away. And in the right spot, there we go. Let's see, next, I have, let's do this. Got some yellows to work on. So, put these two aside because they don't apply in this case. You notice that both one of my assault sergeants and my heavy sergeant, they have mohawks, essentially. And also on this sergeant, well, here, I'll go ahead and do it. For my assault sergeant, I'm going to make his mohawk a nice bright shade of blonde. And for the heavy sergeant, I'm going to go with a slightly darker color that is desert yellow. It's like a very light brown, I guess. Somewhere between yellow and brown, but you can see the difference here. Oh, hiccuping a lot. Now, the yellow, I'm also going to use in another spot. As you notice on my heavy, sergeant, I made this black and white checker mark type of design. This yellow is actually going to be used to fill in the opposite squares that I filled the black in. So just a little extra detail in there. So I'll actually go ahead and start with the desert blonde, and I'm not going to use my handle because that's just going to get in the way, and I don't need this anymore either. So, yellows, here we go. Okay, got some yellows in. This babe yellow is having, babe blonde. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting it to mix properly, so I'm definitely going to have to get a ball bearing for this. I should probably do it for a few of my paints, actually, but anywho, at least for the banner, it's got the desired effect, right? There's some nice bit of yellow going on in there. And you can kind of see he's got a nice dark brown or light brown mohawk. This guy I'm having a little bit more trouble with. But, I mean, there's a yellow there, so it's fine. Let's see, another thing I want to do, actually, before I forget, is I want to hit their eyeballs. These two that are unhelmed with a little bit of white. And actually, this one, my heavy sergeant, since he has the bionic eye, that needs to be red. So I'll do that really quick. And then I'm also, well, actually, you know what? I'll do this all at the same time. My two sarges with the swords, the blades, I'm going to go ahead and do up in shining silver. It's a lot like my gunmetal, but it's a much more brighter color. Silver, basically. And then last but not least, all over these guys, such as like for example, his forearm, he's got a skull on his bracer there. And then there's just other smaller details, like some of the stuff hanging off their belts, the toppings of their banners, and just stuff like that, decorations. I'm going to go ahead and make them greedy gold. That's a nice, the darker gold of the ones I have. And then we'll go from there. But first, I'm going to do up some eyeballs. Here we go. Okay. So as I'm working on this guy, it turns out there is actually some things that I'm missing. So I won't be able to finish these guys up yet. Namely, I really do need to get a fucking mixing ball in that yellow. But until then, got some golds done. Got some silveries done. Pretty much got almost all the detail on these guys. The one exception is, of course, our standard Intercessor Sergeant, because he's got just a little bit more going on. However, what I will do next, I'm going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to get a little bit of extra detail on these swords. And that is going to be something where, here we go. What I'm going to do is apply a layer of Drakenhof Nightshade over the blades of the swords, and this will give them a nice bluish tint. It'll be a bit of a heavy tint. That's fine. Yeah, I don't really have anything else that I want to use instead. And then, since this normally takes a bit longer to dry, and it would be nice to actually finish with this actually dry, I'm going to go ahead and add in the snow onto the base. But first, let me find something for myself to actually listen to. First. The blades. Alright, had to get a little precise in working with the snow here. Just because this big ass brush that I normally use, I didn't want it getting all between. Getting like stuff all over the legs. Especially some of these other guys that have capes and stuff. Oh, so there you have it. We got a little bit of color on the blades. Nice blue tint. I'll do something with it later. I'm definitely gonna add the gloss paint to it. You know what? There's actually one more thing that I can do. Is this guy has a grenade. So it's only right that grenades are green. Or at least frag grenades anyway. Glad I don't have to do this that much anymore, because some of the older models had lots of grenade bits. Which are just a pain in the ass. There we go. And we'll add some washes and all that stuff later, but I've got to make a trip to the hobby store first. And the good thing is like as I mentioned earlier, the snow will be fully dry by then. So, and I was using Sick Green as the base layer for the grenades. Yeah, there you go. It stands out. But once I add some more, once I add a wash to it, it'll kind of dull out, and the green won't. Because you can even see here now, even though the camera isn't that focused, there's like a green spot. But once I add in the green wash that I have and kind of darken it up, that'll go away. It won't draw too much attention. So, speaking of attention, we will return in a moment and give these guys a little bit more attention. Alright, as I promised and failed to last time, this time, we're finally going to finish these guys off. Mainly because I'm going back in with the Bay Blonde, and I have mixing balls in there. Or, I got one of these guys rattling around in this thing so it can finally get nice and mixed up. But before we do that, first thing I want to do is, as you can see, our bases are nice and snowed up, and this is all dry. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back into all the rims and go in with our matte black and just kind of get rid of all the spillover from, you know, the texture and the dry brush and all that stuff, and make the rims nice and black. And in addition to that, speaking of black, my two dudes without helmets have I wanted to say bare eyes, but their eyes are exposed, so I'm going to go in with my B-tip black pen, and we're just going to really gingerly might even be able to see it there. Maybe not. There's a pupil in there. It'll show up more once I do like photos and stuff like that. So for now, you'll just have to take my word on it. Oh, this was a little odd looking, but whatever. Shit. There we go. Okay, so now let's get in here and do up some rims real quick. Rims done. So now, where'd this go? Here we go. Now we are going to try, so these guys are done. I'm going to try to finish the yellow. So we'll see how our babe yellow looks, and it's still pretty wet up here at the top. Just a pain in the ass. Oh yeah. It's thicker, so that's nice. Let's see how that looks. And it's still pretty wet though. Slightly more solid, but not really. I think this color just might be screwed. I don't know. Oh well. I think that's as good as we're going to get with this mohawk. So, no, that's it. These boys, our Intercessor Seargents, are all finished. Let me put all this stuff back. Let's give you a nice view of what we got here. So we've got our standard Intercessor Seargent. We've got our heavy Intercessor Seargent in gravis armor. He's got his heavy bolter there, telling his men to hold, to hodl. And here is our helmeted Assault Sergeant with his boy. Oh, you know what? There is something I still need to do. And the regular Intercessor Sergeant. I do, however, still need to apply some washes or some shades. Not that one. So before I forget, on all the gold stuff that we painted, I'm going to put on a layer of Reichland Flesh Shade. That is going to give us some nice detail. in the gold, and especially like on the wings and stuff like that on the banner toppers that they have. And then on this guy that has a grenade, green shade. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, now the sergeants are done. Got some gold going on. I'll show you this guy as an example. So now we got some nice details going on in the banner toppers. This one's probably the best example since it's mostly wings and stuff. You can see in the back as well. And then of course it's sword hilt. It's got some details. It's got this thing hanging off his belt. And really all the guys have something similar. I also took the time to try and add some color in on that rope, or this tassel type thing that he's got on his shoulder pad, but the yellow's still being a pain in the ass. I don't think this is going to work anytime soon, but sergeants are done, which means that this video is also done. Come back up to my beautiful face. You just finished watching another episode of the Poncho's Paint Booth here on the Multi-Murdy Media YouTube channel, where you will get this playlist as well as the GTS Gamer playlist, which I'm going to be working on again very soon here at the time of this recording. Obviously, it will already have happened. I had to get a new one of these, a new capture card. Because this one turned out to be a piece of shit and burnt out. And then the next one that I ordered off of Amazon was busted. Like, physically. But, anyways, and then of course you also get the Jankety Ass podcast in video format right here on my channel. And if you stay till the end of the episode or go into the show notes, you'll get the multimurdymedia.com. That's my website. It also has links to everything, including, speaking of the podcast, all the audio platforms that it's available on. And you will also get the model gallery for all the stuff that I work on in this show. So go check it out, subscribe, like, give me some support, and keep supporting. And I will see you all with the next work very soon.